So the only thing that I wanted to kind of see, I don't know why you think JD Vance is great. So I am like a right-wing populist, I'd say, more into like my beliefs. I just don't find him as genuine. I get his story and his background. I just don't think he actually. I think the venture capitalist background, him being propped up by a lot of Silicon Valley capital venture funds, really puts a bad taste in my mouth. That he's
Who
really
is a
down on
populist
top.
on the national level that you think that's not the case for? That's not connected to some big money.
I think the bench is shit. So I'll.
Well, but here's the
100%
thing:
agree
it
with
has
you
to
on
be. This is the unfortunate truth of what's going on. Let's say hypothetically you really like me as a populist, right? You know what the chances of me ever be elected senator or VP are? Bupkis. Want to know why? Because I have no connections and I'm broke as a joke. So I don't have a chance because we have a system that requires you to get some sort of name recognition, and with very, very, very insane, rare situations, you're going to have big time money from somewhere. You could do it because you're Donald Trump or you're Elon Musk or you're Mark Cuban, someone who is independently wealthy on their own. And that's why Trump's like lightning in a bottle, because he could operate outside of that system where hypothetically he didn't owe favors and everything because he was independently wealthy and had already been engaged in the system for years before he was active politically. But if you're someone like JD Vance, you're never going to become a household name to even be on a radar for national level politics at this level unless you had some sort of financial backing. And so, like, it's the same with Vivek. Like, all these criticisms could be made of Vivek as well. Well, he was involved in pharmaceuticals and this, that, and the other. Yeah, that sucks. Would I prefer that background with both JD Vance and Vivek not be there? Of course. Then we would have never heard of them.
So I don't disagree with that. I will say I think that's why I would rather back more of like a paleo-conservative to achieve the goals than
But like, who would you put in that camp?
Well, I know that Thomas Massie's never going to win like president.
I would call Thomas Massie a populist. I think Thomas Massie's probably... Look, if I had my druthers, Thomas Massie's top of my list for who I'd want to be president. I'd take him over Trump any day.
I think Rand Paul, unfortunately, is off-putting, but I would rather him too.
I like Rand Paul too. Yeah, but again, even with them, there's things that you could connect them. There's money you could connect them to, and there's, Rand Paul sort of has the legacy factor that his dad was a politician.
I know he's kind of anointed.
And Massie, I think Massie's pretty wealthy on his own. Listen. So I talked to a guy. Shit, I'll throw his name out. I don't know if I should. I talked to a congressman in Pennsylvania, reasonably. Okay, let me rephrase this. I've talked to him a few times at political rallies. His name's Dan Muser. I think maybe District 2 here in Pennsylvania. Cool guy, at least to talk to in person. I haven't followed his voting track record because he's not my congressman. I talked to him once about lobbying, and he said the right thing to me. I'd have to look in to see if this is true or not. But he's like, Rob, let's say that I want to disband the FBI, right? And then all of a sudden, a bunch of people from the Atlantic Council give me $1 million for my campaign. Should I not take it? The problem's not taking the money. The problem's owing them something afterwards. And he's like, so if I could take the money, and I'm like, great, I'm still going to go after you guys. Is there a problem? Now, we on the outside say, well, there's a problem because we anticipate that you will change and you will owe them a favor. But if you could see in a crystal ball and it was like, no, they won't, you wouldn't have a problem with it. You'd just say, okay, fine. As long as it's done legally, okay. You want to donate money to someone who's trying to sabotage your corrupt ideology? Have at her. If George Soros threw $5 million at me tomorrow through some cutout and it was legal, it's through some NGO, and they're like, here, Rob, we're from, Super Progressive Alliance. Here you go, man. Here's $5 million. Now, when you stream tomorrow, is that going to change your mind? Do you now think Kamala Harris is awesome? I'm going to say, thank you very much for the money. No, go fuck yourselves. Kamala Harris sucks. I'm still voting Trump. But I'll take the $5 million. Thanks so much. So I agree with you. You would rather that sort of thing not... Now, this is all in the abstract. Would I prefer that there not be connections to Peter Thiel from JD Vance? Of course. But At this point, it's like, I don't even know how we could fight within the system without that sort of thing. Because at this point, the deck is stacked so much against anyone with a paleoconservative or populist bent. I don't know how they get on the national radar without those sort of things.
I mean, that's fair, I think, at this point in time. I do wish, like I mentioned, I don't think the bench is deep for right-wing populism. I think the people that we've mentioned probably is the short list. With that being said, one thing that so in the debate last night,
I'm listening, go ahead.
Do you remember where Kamala Harris said that a bunch of economists and all these, she listed a bunch of people said like your economic plan was terrible?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that she said though was Goldman Sachs says. Yeah. I don't know, the fact that Donald Trump didn't say you're listening to Goldman Sachs, the people that caused the housing financial crisis. Like, there's stuff like that where I think that them not talking about that stuff, or how Barack Obama's whole group is like Citibank and all this, that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know if you can take that kind of money, at least in the executive, and not be compromised to some of this corporate stuff. So that's my hesitation on Vance.
Yeah, there's same with Vivek to a certain extent as well. And I think that no one is entitled to your vote. No one is entitled to you liking them. They have to earn it constantly. I agree with that, right? I think that you are exhibiting a healthy amount of skepticism. I too share that skepticism. For example, my primary choice for who I wanted to see was Vivek Ramaswamy. The big question of Vivek is, would you tell me if you agree with this? I think Vivek's a very smart guy. Would you agree with that?
I actually agree with a lot of his policies, everything he said. He would have been, out of the people that actually were on the debate stage, would have been my choice.
But
unfortunately, he's off person.
Well, but do you think he's smart? That's the only part I'm concerned with at this point.
No, I would not.
Oh, I disagree. I think Vivek's very smart.
Well, I wouldn't question that he's smart.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think, but one of the dangers of that is he smart enough to tell me what he knows I want to hear? Right? That's
the off-putting part about him.
Right. And you have to, that's still a question about Vivek. It is a question. And until he is operating in a political position and putting, his actions match up with his words, that will rightfully always be a question about him. And it should be. But I think we are so, like you said, our bench is so thin at this part. At least the guy telling me the right things has a chance, as opposed to almost no one else even saying the right things. Like, I like DeSantis. I like Trump. I think probably the most important issue in this election is reining in the corrupt intel agencies. Vivek's like, disband the FBI. Yes! Absolutely! DeSantis is like, well, let's move their office to a different state. Okay? Trump's like, let's build them a new office in D.C. So of those three positions, which one am I going to vote for? I'm going to go with disband the FBI. That's what I'm going to go with. Now, there is an absolute chance that Vivek's pissing on my leg. They ain't going to do it, and he knows it, and he's just telling me what he knows I want to hear, and he's analyzed this and said, here is my path to political victory. I could pretend to be this Trump-like figure, except more intelligent and more policy-oriented, and that's my path. Maybe that's true, but I don't think that, at this point, I think you got to roll the dice on that a little if the alternative's same old, that's not going to do anything effective and change things, and you know it, so.